Strong women often confuse emotional endurance with love. They stay longer, forgive deeper, and carry the relationship on their backs because they believe loyalty will eventually teach someone how to value them. But love cannot grow where respect is absent. The painful truth is that many intelligent women become emotionally attached to a man's potential, not his actual behavior. Being chosen is not the same as being cherished. A man may want your attention, your comfort, your support, and your presence, yet still fail to protect your heart. Many women mistake emotional intensity for emotional security. The heartbreak comes when they realize they were deeply invested in someone who only loved the benefits of them, not the responsibility of loving them fully. Self-worth disappears slowly inside one-sided love. It rarely happens overnight. It happens through unanswered effort, repeated disappointment, emotional neglect, and constantly shrinking yourself to keep someone from leaving. Even a confident, successful woman can begin questioning her value. The real lesson is that love should never require abandoning your dignity just to feel wanted. She met him at a time in her life when she wasn't looking to be rescued. That's what made it so unexpected. She was already strong, already independent, already carrying her own life with both hands. She handled her responsibilities, made her own decisions, survived her own storms. People admired her because she looked emotionally mature, composed, intelligent. The kind of woman who gave advice to others. The kind of woman everyone assumed would never lose herself in love. But strength does not protect a person from attachment. And sometimes, the strongest women become the most emotionally trapped because they believe they can survive anything, even being unloved correctly. At first, he made her feel seen. Not fully loved, not deeply understood, but noticed in a way that touched something lonely inside her. He listened closely in the beginning. He asked questions. He remembered little details. He made her feel soft again, and for a woman who spent most of her life being strong, softness can feel dangerously addictive. That was the beginning. She ignored the first signs because they didn't look serious enough to destroy something that felt emotionally meaningful. The delayed replies, the inconsistency, the moments where she felt emotionally alone even while talking to him, the way he only showed up fully when he felt like losing her. But she explained all of it away because intelligent women often know how to rationalize pain better than anyone. She told herself he was stressed, confused, emotionally unavailable because of his past. She believed patience would heal what effort alone could not. And this is where so many strong women silently break themselves. They confuse emotional endurance with love. They believe that if they stay understanding enough, loyal enough, supportive enough, naturally the other person will wake up one day and finally realize their worth. So they overgive, they over-explain. They become emotionally fluent in someone else's wounds while neglecting their own. She started carrying the entire relationship emotionally. If there was distance, she closed it. If there was conflict, she fixed it. If communication disappeared, she restarted it. She became the emotional glue holding together something that should have required two people. And because she was strong, nobody noticed she was slowly becoming exhausted. That's the dangerous thing about capable women. People assume they are okay because they continue functioning. They continue working, smiling, helping others, posting normal photos, answering calls, showing up for life. But inside, they are starving for the very love they keep pouring into someone else. There were nights she cried quietly and still texted him kindly the next morning. Days she felt unwanted but convinced herself she was similar. Overthinking. Moments where her intuition screamed that she deserved more, but her attachment whispered, just hold on a little longer. Because attachment is powerful like that. It can make a woman mourn a relationship that never fully existed the way she imagined it. She wasn't only attached to who he was, she was attached to who he could become, to his potential, to the rare moments of tenderness that gave her hope, to the version of the relationship that existed beautifully in her mind but inconsistently in reality. And every time he gave her just enough affection to keep her emotionally connected, she stayed. Not because she was weak, because she loved deeply. But deep love without reciprocity becomes self-destruction disguised as loyalty. Over time, she noticed herself shrinking. She became less expressive, less confident, more anxious. She started measuring her worth by his consistency. Her mood depended on his attention. A single cold reply could ruin her entire day. Why, while a small moment of affection could temporarily revive her hope again. That emotional cycle exhausted her spirit. The woman who once felt emotionally grounded now felt emotionally dependent on crumbs. And the hardest part was admitting it to herself. Because strong women are used to being admired for their resilience. They don't easily confess when something or someone has the power to emotionally unravel them. One evening, after another disappointment, she sat alone staring at her phone in silence. No anger left, no dramatic breakdown, just exhaustion. The kind that reaches your soul after loving someone who continuously benefits from your heart without protecting it. And for the first time, she stopped asking, "Why am I not enough for him?" Instead, she asked, "Why am I fighting so hard to be valued by someone who clearly sees my love and still handles it carelessly?" That question changed everything, because healing often begins the moment a woman stops trying to earn love that should have been freely given. She finally understood that love is not proven by how much pain you can tolerate. Real love does not constantly confuse you, emotionally starve you, or make you abandon yourself to keep someone close. And no amount of loyalty can convince a person to value you if they benefit from giving you the bare minimum. So she walked away. Not because she stopped loving him immediately. That would have been easier. She walked away while still attached, while still grieving, while still carrying memories she wished had become something real. But this time, she chose herself louder than she chose her attachment. And that is one of the hardest things a loving woman will ever do. Because sometimes the real heartbreak is not losing someone else. It is realizing how long you were willing to lose yourself just to keep them. She used to think that being chosen meant being loved. That if a man kept coming back, kept calling, kept reaching for her and moments of loneliness, then somewhere inside him there had to be something real, something deep, something worth holding on to. And in the beginning, it felt real enough to silence every doubt she tried not to hear. He wanted her constantly at first, her attention, her time, her emotional warmth. He told her things he claimed he had never told anyone. Late-night conversations turned into emotional dependency. He leaned on her when life became heavy. He searched for her when he felt misunderstood. And because she loved deeply, she mistook access for intimacy. She believed that being emotionally needed meant being emotionally valued. But there is a painful difference between someone loving your presence and someone truly protecting your heart. She didn't notice it immediately because the relationship was filled with emotional highs that made the lows easier to excuse. He could be incredibly affectionate when he wanted to be. Some days he made her feel irreplaceable, the way he looked at her, the way he held her during vulnerable moments, the way he said her name when he needed comfort. All of it created the illusion of emotional security. But real security is not built on temporary tenderness. It is built on consistency. And consistency was exactly what he could never give her. She began living emotionally confused. One day she felt adored, the next she felt invisible. One moment he spoke about the future, the next he emotionally disappeared. She found herself constantly trying to decode his behavior instead of simply feeling safe inside the relationship. That confusion slowly became its own kind of addiction. Because when someone gives love inconsistently, the rare moments of affection begin to feel more valuable than they actually are. She held on to the good moments like proof that his love was real, even while the bad moments kept breaking her heart. And this is how many women become trapped, not because they are naive, but because emotional inconsistency. Why creates hope? She kept believing the version of him she saw in his softer moments was the real him. She thought if she loved him correctly, patiently, deeply enough, that version would eventually stay. So she became more understanding, more forgiving, more emotionally available. Meanwhile, he continued enjoying everything she gave without carrying the emotional responsibility that real love requires. That was the part that hurt her the most in the end. Not that he hated her, not that he never cared, but that he enjoyed being loved by her without fully loving her back in the way she deserved. There were nights she stayed awake replaying conversations in her mind, trying to understand how someone could hold her so closely and still leave her feeling emotionally alone. How someone could say, "I miss you," yet ignore her emotional needs so easily. How someone could want her body, her comfort, her support, her loyalty, but still fail to protect the very heart giving him all of it. And slowly she started blaming herself. Maybe she was asking for too much. Maybe she was too emotional. Maybe she expected too much reassurance. So she became quieter about her pain, easier to disappoint, easier to neglect. She lowered her standards just to maintain emotional connection with someone who had already shown her that loving her fully was never his priority. That's what one-sided attachment does. It teaches people to betray themselves in small ways first. She stopped expressing when things hurt her because she feared being seen as difficult. She accepted emotional crumbs and called it progress. She celebrated small moments of affection because deep down she was starving for consistency. The woman who once knew her worth began measuring it through his effort. And the saddest part? He probably never even realized how deeply she was breaking. Because some men enjoy the comfort of being emotionally loved without understanding the responsibility of emotionally ring for someone properly. They want the benefits of closeness without the discipline of commitment. They want loyalty without accountability. They want understanding while offering confusion in return. And women with deep hearts often stay because they keep focusing on intention instead of reality. She kept saying, "But I know he cares about me." Maybe he did. But caring about someone is not the same thing as caring for them. Love is not measured by words spoken during emotional moments. It is measured by behavior during ordinary days, by consistency, by effort, by emotional safety, by how gently someone handles your vulnerability once you place your trust in their hands. And eventually, reality became impossible for her to ignore. One evening, she was sitting across from him while he spoke casually about his day, and suddenly she realized something devastating. She had spent so much time trying to prove her value to him that she never stopped to ask whether he was truly adding peace to her life. She loved him deeply, but she was emotionally exhausted. There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes from being emotionally attached to someone who only partially shows up for you. It drains your confidence quietly. You begin doubting your instincts, your needs, your expectations. You become grateful for treatment that should have been basic, and somewhere in the middle of loving him, she abandoned herself. The realization shattered her, because she finally understood that being chosen is not the same as being cherished. A person can want you in their life and still fail to love you responsibly. They can crave your presence while neglecting your feelings. They can hold your hand while carelessly breaking your spirit at the same time. So she stopped romanticizing almost love. She stopped calling inconsistency passion. She stopped mistaking emotional dependency for connection. And for the first time in a long time, she chose to believe that real love would feel safe, mutual, and clear, not like constantly fighting for reassurance from someone who benefits from your devotion more than they value your heart. Because the most painful relationships are not always the ones where love never existed. Sometimes they are the ones where love existed just enough to make you stay far longer than you should have. When people looked at her, they still saw the same woman. She still went to work, still answered messages, still smiled in photographs, still showed up for birthdays, family dinners, conversations with friends. From the outside, nothing about her seemed broken. But heartbreak does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a woman quietly losing pieces of herself while trying to keep a relationship alive. And the terrifying part is how slowly it happens. No one wakes up one morning and decides to abandon their self-worth for love. It happens little by little, through repeated disappointments, through emotional neglect, Zaz's busy schedules, through unanswered effort, through constantly giving someone the benefit of the doubt until doubt becomes the only thing left inside you. In the beginning, she had standards. She knew what she deserved. She used to speak confidently about relationships, about respect, about emotional maturity. She promised herself she would never beg for attention, never chase someone emotionally unavailable, never stay where she felt unwanted. Then she met him, and at first he made her feel special enough that she lowered small boundaries without noticing. She told herself compromise was normal. Relationships required patience, understanding, sacrifice. So when he disappointed her the first few times, she stayed calm about it. When he became distant, she tried to communicate gently. When he forgot important things, she forgave him easily. She loved with empathy instead of ego, but empathy without limits can destroy a person. Because every time she accepted behavior that hurt her without truly addressing it, she taught herself that her pain was negotiable. Every time she silenced her feelings to avoid conflict, she slowly disconnected from her own voice. Every time she accepted less than she deserved just to maintain emotional closeness, her self-worth weakened quietly beneath the surface. That is how women lose themselves. Not loudly, gradually. There were moments when her intuition warned her. Small moments. The feeling in her chest after he ignored her all day but suddenly wanted attention at night. The loneliness she felt sitting beside him while emotionally carrying the entire relationship alone. The anxiety that appeared whenever his energy changed slightly. But attachment can make people betray their own instincts, especially women who love deeply. Instead of listening to herself, she worked harder to become easier to love. She became more patient, more available, less demanding. She convinced herself that if she stayed soft enough, understanding enough, supportive enough, eventually he would recognize her value and love her the way she deserved. But unhealthy love has a dangerous way of shifting a person's identity. Without realizing it, she stopped asking herself what she needed. Everything became about keeping the relationship stable, keeping him comfortable, keeping him from leaving. And once a woman starts shrinking herself to avoid abandonment, she begins disappearing emotionally. She noticed it in small ways first. She reread old messages searching for reassurance. She overanalyzed his tone. She became anxious over delayed replies even though she once prided herself on being emotionally secure. She checked her phone constantly. Her happiness became dependent on moments of validation from someone who gave affection inconsistently. The confident woman she once was started feeling emotionally fragile. And the saddest part was that she blamed herself for it. She thought maybe she was becoming too emotive. Now, maybe she expected too much. Maybe she needed to be less sensitive. So instead of questioning the relationship, she questioned her worth inside it. That's how heartbreak begins, changing a person from the inside out. Not only because of what someone does to you, but because of what you slowly begin believing about yourself while loving them. There were nights she cried quietly after conversations that left her feeling unseen, then woke up the next morning pretending everything was fine. Days where she felt emotionally abandoned but still defended him to her friends because she couldn't bear hearing the truth out loud. Deep down, she knew she was starving emotionally, but attachment kept convincing her that survival was enough. And that is one of the most dangerous things love can do to a human being. It can make them feel grateful for crumbs when they once deserved a feast. She became disconnected from herself. The things that once brought her peace no longer mattered. Her confidence faded. Her laughter became less genuine. Even her reflection started looking unfamiliar to her. Not because heartbreak changed her appearance, but because emotional exhaustion changes the energy people carry. She missed herself. That was the part nobody talks about enough. Sometimes the deepest grief in a relationship is not losing the other person. It is watching yourself slowly disappear while trying to hold on to someone who is no longer holding on to you with the same care. One night, after another cycle of disappointment and reconciliation, she sat alone in silence and realized she could no longer remember the last time she truly felt emotionally safe. Not temporarily reassured, not briefly comforted, safe. The realization hit her harder than the heartbreak itself, because she finally understood that she had spent so much time trying to save the relationship that she never noticed how much damage the relationship was doing to her. Love should not constantly make someone questions their value. Love should not require emotional self-abandonment. Love should not turn a confident woman into someone who feels unworthy of consistency, reassurance, effort, or care. And in that moment, something inside her changed. Not all at once. Healing never happens dramatically, but for the first time, she stopped focusing on whether he would choose her and started asking whether she was finally ready to choose herself. That question became the beginning of her return. She started rebuilding slowly, reconnecting with the parts of herself she had neglected, learning that boundaries are not cruelty, that needing respect is not asking for too much, that emotional peace matters more than temporary attachment. And eventually she understood something that completely transformed her life. The right love will never require you to slowly destroy yourself just to keep it alive.